Hello everybody and welcome to Sports Japan. This week as always, we've got lots of great stuff in store from the world of Japanese sports. In focus this week, we feature Kendo. We delve into its history, taking a look at how it's managed to survive through various setbacks to go on to become an international sport.
In Kendo, competitors attempt to strike specific areas on each other's bodies with bamboo swords known as shinai. The action can be over in an instant, with top competitors taking just half a second to strike. Some can even launch an attack in a mere tenth of a second. In both defense and attack, the Kendo practitioner relies entirely on their shinai. These swords evolved from the real blades once used on the battlefield. From the 10th century, Japanese warriors, known as samurai, were permitted to carry swords at all times, and from the 12th century onwards, the country was run by feudal military governments or shogunates. The samurai also performed an administrative function, like that of the modern civil service. Even in times of peace, the samurai had another important duty, however, and here to discuss that with us is martial arts expert Alex Bennett.
Japan became relatively peaceful at the beginning of the 17th century when they created the Tokugawa Bakufu. And their role in peacetime society changed. And from combatants, from actual, out in the battlefields fighting, they became, bureaucrats. And one of their important jobs was to really maintain the peace in societies. And so they had to practice the martial arts as well to make sure that they're always prepared, just in case.
Samurai began learning martial arts at a young age and were required to continually polish their skills. Over the centuries, many different styles of swordsmanship developed. Practicing with bamboo swords and protective gear first became popular during the latter half of the 17th century. As bamboo sword practice could be conducted safely, its popularity grew not only among samurai but also with traders and farmers. By the early 19th century, there were already more than 700 different schools. Genbukan was, at that time, one of the three main centers for practicing with bamboo swords. Legendary swordmaster Shusaku Chiba, Genbukan's founder, summarized sword fighting into 68 different techniques. His teaching gained the reputation of being particularly effective and easy to understand, prompting huge numbers of people to join the dojo. Shusaku Chiba's 68 techniques became the basis of modern Kendo. Despite their immense popularity at this time, sword fighting techniques would later very nearly become consigned to history. A major turning point in Japan's modern history was the arrival in 1853 of Commodore Perry and the first warships from the United States. For centuries, Japan had restricted trade with other countries, but the US demanded it open its doors. The huge warships were loaded with the latest advanced weaponry. Japanese people quickly realized that swords were no match for such military might. Many began to fear that leaving the feudal shogunate government in power would lead to Japan's colonization by Western powers, and a movement began to unseat the government and begin modernizing the country. Japan's first modern government was established in 1868. The Tokugawa shogunate, which had lasted over 260 years, collapsed, and the samurai became regular citizens. Traditional martial arts soon became regarded as a relic of the past.
The samurai had never learned how to make things or grow things or sell things. His profession was military, so he knew his martial arts, but there's no need for them. There are stories of some of these great swordsmen who became, who starved because they had no money.
Martial artists were left behind by the pace of modernization. It was a man called Kenkichi Sakakibara who stood up to try and address the situation. Sakakibara had been an instructor at the Kobusho, the government-run martial arts training institute. Seeing the despair of samurai who'd fallen on hard times, he came up with a plan to assist them. He decided to try and popularize sword fighting once again by arranging what were called Gekken Kogyo, sword fighting shows featuring bouts between talented swordsmen. As sumo was still popular at the time, he decided to hold these bouts in sumo rings. The shows were a huge success.
The first day he opened it, there was over 3,000 people or something wanted to get inside. And so, of course, they're all paying. So all of the money that he got from the paying customers, he would divide it among the swordsmen. And some of the best swordsmen, before long, they were getting the equivalent of, say, $100 a day for doing a few fights.
Sakakibara's success led to the establishment of associations across the country for the management of organized sports. This allowed some swordsmen to survive the changing times by traveling around the country, earning money by showing off their skills. It was also around this time that the Satsuma Rebellion broke out, a revolt by former samurai who objected to the direction taken by Japan's new government. It was initially assumed that the government, with their modern weapons, would crush the rebels with ease. The insurgents were strongly motivated, however, and fought tenaciously with both muskets and swords. Many government forces were killed and injured in the fierce fighting. It was the Batto Tai, a select group of special forces from the new government's Metropolitan Police Department, that was able to rise to this challenge. Many members of the Batto Tai were former samurai who had been hired as police by the new Meiji government. Although the rebels had muskets, the Batto Tai were armed only with swords. But it was during close quarters combat that the swords came into their own.
The Batto Tai won, and they were only using swords. So they took swords to a gunfight, and they won. And this was quite sensational throughout the country. When you look into it, there are various factors behind it. For example, I think the weather was very bad. There was a lot of fog.
So you can't see.
The success of the Batto Tai led people across Japan to reassess their view of swords. There was a growing consensus that the swordsmanship that lay at the heart of the samurai spirit should not be underestimated, and from then on it was adopted as a standard part of police training.
They needed people to teach. So who was going to teach the police how to do kenjutsu? Well, they went to the old stars of the Gekken shows and gave them employment as instructors to the police or in the military and so forth.
Sword fighting went on to be included in Japan's school curriculum in 1912. This is when the traditional name of kenjutsu was changed to Kendo. It also marked a new emphasis on physical and spiritual health. some important footage from the early 20th century was recently found. It shows fierce kenjutsu practice. Kenjutsu master Takemi Sasamori will turn 84 this year. He learned about the early days of Kendo from his father.
At the time, there were some very rough techniques, including sweeping an opponent's legs out from under them or thrusting the sword up under their mask to knock them down.
Sasamori explains that in Kendo's early days, it wasn't as refined as today and was heavily influenced by battlefield arts. In 1937, after Japan went to war with China, the practice of Kendo was affected by the militarism gripping Japan, and Japanese soldiers began to use swords on the battlefield. This relationship between sword fighting and the military resulted in another major crisis for Kendo after Japan lost the Second World War. The victorious Allied forces who occupied Japan banned not only Kendo, but almost all Japanese martial arts.
There was an organization in the war years called the Dai Nippon Butokukai, and that was the umbrella organization for all of the martial arts. They were considered by the American and the Allied occupation as being an ultra-nationalistic or militaristic organization. And so they were considered, this organization, the Butokukai, was considered to be dangerous.
The occupying forces were particularly strict on Kendo due to its close links with the military, and the sport risked disappearing altogether. Sasamori's father Junzo played a key role in saving Kendo.
My father had studied in the U.S., and by coincidence, one of his fellow alumni had a position within Allied headquarters. They were able to speak frankly with each other, and it was eventually agreed that Kendo could be gradually reinstated.
Junzo aimed to promote Kendo as a purely sporting practice, so the first step was to ensure safety. To accomplish this, he developed a new type of bamboo sword wrapped in a cloth bag, known as a fukuro-jinai. The fukuro-jinai is made from bamboo split into thin strips and wrapped in a cloth covering. It hardly hurts at all on contact.
To make it look more like a sport, competitors wore trousers and white shirts, and to avoid injury, they used masks, like those in fencing.
Sasamori still has one of the old masks. It really looks very much like a fencing mask. By imitating a gentleman's sport, it was hoped that Kendo's militaristic image could be shed. Junzo also clarified some of Kendo's vaguer rules.
He formalized the inbounds area and also introduced time limits, a points system, and judges raising flags to indicate the winner.
Junzo first succeeded in receiving permission from Allied headquarters to practice what he called Shinai sports, an initial hybrid form. In 1950, he became the first chair of the Nihon Shinai Sports Federation and worked hard to popularize the new sport. 2 years later, after Kendo was fully reinstated, the All Japan Kendo Federation was founded. In 1954, having fulfilled its mission, Shinai Sports was absorbed into the Kendo Federation. And Junzo went on to become the Kendo Federation's chief advisor. Many of the rules drawn up by Junzo to create Shinai Sports helped shape modern Kendo, which now has more than 2.5 million practitioners worldwide. Alex says that as Kendo now becomes increasingly international, it's important to make sure that the essence of the sport is not forgotten.
There is a trend in sports as they become popular, there's more of a need to make it black and white, and the rules become very strict and very detailed. And I think Kendo has a lot of grey area in it. And that's what makes it beautiful, I think. And I really hope that Kendo, as it is now, stays as it is.
The fundamental principle of Kendo is continuous personal development, and it's this essence that should always be kept alive.
I hope everybody enjoyed our show today. Wasn't the story of Kendo so intriguing? I was really moved by the dedication of everyone who struggled to keep it alive at times when its very existence was threatened. Learning more about its history has helped me realize what a proud martial art it is. So thank everybody for watching Sports Japan, and we'll see you next time.